UFC Atlantic City. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event is Aaron Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot. I'm excited to talk about each of the matchups on the card. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. And also note, I'll be live for the entire UFC Atlantic City fight card this Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss the fight companion. And let's get into the first fight on the card. We have Nate Landwehr versus Jamall Emmers. I'm going with Nate Landwehr to fight hard and get like a gutsy back and forth decision win. Jamall Emmers has good length and he fights pretty well from the outside. Solid stand-up game. Good lateral movement too, but what I like about Landwehr is going to be looking to close the gap. Get on the inside, make this fight nasty and close, potentially even timing takedowns and mixing the game up. I think Nate Landwehr edges out Jamall Emmers in a good scrap. I think Landwehr's going to push a pace. I think Emmers is going to be doing a lot of movement, but I'm not confident that Emmers has the stinging power to keep Nate Landwehr off of him for 3 whole rounds and cruise to a decision. I think Nate makes it nasty and close, and I'm going to pick him to pull this one off. I'm going to say decision. I don't think he finishes Jamall Emmers. Emmers is not an easy guy to sub up on the ground. I know he got caught by Pat Sabatini in a heel hook like 2.5 years ago, but he went distance in a recent loss. Granted, Jack Jenkins is not a great submission finisher, and that loss right there, bit of a red flag, especially fighting Nate Landwehr, who just took on Dan Ige in a gutsy effort, lost the decision, and then Dennis Buzukja win for Jamall Emmers. I was surprised to look at the betting odds. I anticipated the side of Jamall Emmers to be dog money. I thought this line would be completely flipped, but at open, we got Nate Landwehr minus 110, so even money. And then now Jamall Emmers around minus 193, the favorite. That threw me off. I was thinking it would be 2-1 favoring Nate Landwehr, but seeing him as a dog and a guy that I thought should have been the favorite was surprising. I think he puts a pace on Emmers. I think we got a good competitive fight, but I think Nate Landwehr outdogs him a little nastier and close, and I do think if they tie up, he'll be the better grappler. Minus 175 for an over 2.5. I think there's a good chance we're going over 2.5 here. I got Nate Landwehr to get it done. I'm picking him as a dog to open up this card. Let's keep running. Next fight on it, we have ladies going after it. It's Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. Oh, I absolutely hate the pick here. I absolutely hate it. I've been flip-flopping back, forth, and obviously you can tell I'm kind of delaying it right now. I'm going to pick Dudakova. But it's such a worrisome pick because she hasn't looked incredible. I mean, she had that Estela Nunes injury, and then Jinyu Frey she beat, but she got taken down and controlled for like 3.5 minutes. The reason I'm picking Dudakova over Gatto is Dudakova's faster on the feet. Gatto has decent straight shots, but I don't know, a little too loose with her punches. Doesn't have much snap to her shots. And then the grappling, I think Gatto has better jiu-jitsu, but she's got like a really low takedown percentage rate of landing them. I don't think she's blasting a double on Dudakova. I think if Gatto's to wrestle, it's clinch work, trips against the cage, or even climbing the back. More that type of jiu-jitsu grappling takedown instead of like, a blast double leg. I'm going to pick Dudakova on a close decision. I think it's a competitive fight, but Dudakova is definitely faster in the striking, a little more polished standing up. I think she's got more snap to her shots. You look at Gatto, we give some respect. The Ariane Lipski fight last time out was a split decision loss, and then Tracy Cortez there before. She does have wins in the UFC, 2-2 in the octagon. I'm going to pick the 8-0 Dudakova. I'm having some faith in the undefeated record. I think Dudakova can stay upright. I don't think that Gatto has the wrestling threat that's substantial enough to keep her on her back, and that's the reason I'm going Dudakova to get it done. Now, as far as the odds for this one, Dudakova's a dog at plus 140. Gatto minus 160. I could see it as pick'ems, but she opened up at minus 220. The line flipped in favor of Gatto that substantially. Who's jumping out the gate impressed by Gatto's game? Like, she's okay. She beat Sijara Eubanks, I guess, but I don't know, man. I think that Dudakova's got a decent shot to win. I think it's a pretty competitive fight. I'm going to say it goes over 2.5. It's at minus 200. Dudakova's got a lot to prove. She's only 25. Granted, Gatto's only 28. Gatto's the worst athlete, and she's slower on the feet, and she doesn't have very good wrestling. So beating Dudakova, I think you got to get her down and garner some control time because I don't see Gatto out kickboxing her. I'm going to go Dudakova, hard-fought, competitive decision win for her. Should be the striking that's on display. And I think she should look better than she did against Jin Frey. Next fight on the card, we have Ibo Aslan versus Anton Turkalj 2. This is a rematch. These two actually fought in Brave some time ago. It was the most recent loss and only loss for Ibo Aslan 3.5 years ago. Now they rematch in the UFC. Another tricky pick. I'm going to go with Ibo Aslan. Because Anton Turkalj has been ripped up and knocked out, right? Last fight, he got KO'd by Pedro. Fight before that, he got rocked a few times by Petrino. Fight before that, he got dominated on the ground by Jailton Almeida. It's worrisome, though, because I definitely think there's a path for Turkalj to win. If Ibo Aslan cannot put him out in the first round and a half, look at their last fight. He gassed out, and he ended up getting choked out. Turkalj live by sub, Aslan by KO. So both of those props are going to intrigue me. But I am going to pick Aslan because I believe that he has been thinking about this matchup for those 3.5 years since they last fought. I don't think Aslan's that good. I think he's got a badass look, but I don't think he's going to be like a top 5 guy in the world by any means in the light heavyweight division. I think he's an okay prospect. He's got good hands, but he sits in the pocket and brawls. But Turkalj sits in the pocket, brawls, and brings his chin up. So there's red flags on both sides. I think Aslan, because they fought before, knows of the potential grappling threat. And I think because of Turkalj having the win over him last time, we might see a more calculated and patient version of Ibo Aslan. And maybe he surprises us. Maybe Ibo Aslan ends up using a little wrestling in this fight. He controls against the cage, doesn't blow his wad looking for a knockout, and ends up taking a decision. Because we got to give Turkalj respect. He went 3 rounds with Petrino. This is a whole fucking wildfire of a money line bet on either side. I think you can get burned either way. The odds are essentially even. It's a pick'em's fight. And it's going to look like a pick'em's fight. -105 Turkalj, Aslan -115. It's -110 on both fronts. This is an even fight. This is a pick'em's matchup. And we got an under 1.5 -125, over 1.5 -105. Not interested in any of that. Betting-wise, I think this one could burn you. I think Aslan's been hunting for this rematch and is dreaming of getting a knockout win over Turkalj. Turkalj looking to fend off a guy that he beat in a bout that, really sent him to the UFC. You look, Ibo Aslan was what? I think it was a fight before this Konstantin Soldatov fight. I'm going to pick Ibo to beat him this time. But damn, not confidently. But if I was on Turkalj, I wouldn't have confidence either. I'm saying this is 55-45. It's a 50-50 fight. Either side is live. I think that it's a true coin flip matchup. I could see Turkalj by a sub again, or I think Aslan might potentially KO him. Well, who knows? We end up going 3 rounds between these two damn light heavyweights. We'll find out. Either way, the prediction, I'm going to go Aslan. I'm saying knockout, but half of me's thinking he might end up winning a decision because he might fight more calculated than before, but he hasn't proven that he can do that. He's got all KOs. We shall see. Going with Ibo Aslan to win. Next fight on the card, we got Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. I'm going to pick Julio Arce. Herbert Burns is still live in the first round, though. Like a first round Herbert Burns bet, especially because it's probably going to be plus 2,000. It's not going to be awful. Looking at the odds for this fight, I got to quickly look at them. -600 for Arce, +425 for Burns. That's crazy wide. Julio Arce is a good striker, though. Picks his opponents apart pretty well. Moves really well. Herbert Burns has great jiu-jitsu, but is definitely very breakable. He absolutely gassed in his last fight against Bill Algeo and quit. Fight before that, he lost to Daniel Pineda. But early in fights, he threatens with his jiu-jitsu beautifully. He has 3 hard minutes in him, and it's a risk for Julio Arce. Those first 3 minutes are going to be dangerous, but I expect Arce to recognize the threat on the other side is super live early on in the fight. Slow the pace down, right? Slowly pick them apart. Avoid dangerous grappling transitions. Arce is a southpaw as well. I think a lot of shots will open up because Burns is not a great striker. Burns, I would say, is a very talented guy, but he's not like a fighter's fighter. He's a talented athlete with great jiu-jitsu. I think Burns by sub is live in the first round. But I believe high probability that Herbert Burns breaks again. We saw him break last time against Bill Algeo. They say you quit once, it's easier to quit a second time. I think Arce can overwhelm him in the second and third round and stop him. I'm going to pick Julio Arce to get a TKO. Now, I know Arce is not necessarily known for crazy one-shot knockout power, but Herbert Burns can completely gas out and lose all confidence and get beaten. So I'm going to go with Arce to take him out. Arce last time lost. It was against Montel Jackson, down a weight, a year and 4 months ago at 135. But he has fought and been successful up a weight class here at featherweight before. I'm going with Arce. Herbert Burns is weird, though, right? His brother's solid. Gilbert Burns, his brother's very solid. Herbert, he's got the jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't have the same heart. But if he gets you in a bad spot in the first 3 minutes, Julio Arce is in trouble. So if you're betting on this one, if you're betting on the money line of Julio, well, good fucking luck to you. Minus 600. That's insane. Plus 425 Burns. There's no props right now available at all. I want to see what the props look like. I want to see first round win for Herbert Burns, what it looks like, because it would just be a juicy line and, you know, maybe worth a D-Gen sprinkle. And then Arce to potentially stop him a little bit later, second or third round, or even just a straight TKO. I don't think Herbert Burns is going to have the gas. If he's getting touched up with punches, I think he'll eventually break, man. He's been super inconsistent. He is not a full-time fighter. Granted, Arce's been out for a long time. He's not been consistently fighting all that much either. So in a sense, it makes a bit of sense. But like 3 years and 7 months ago was 2 fights ago. At least for Arce, he had 4 fights in since that time that Herbert Burns, you know, has done 2 fights. So we'll double the recent experience. I'm going with Arce to win. He's a big favorite. The line is overjuiced. Arce shouldn't be a minus 600 favorite over anybody. It's just because Herbert Burns looked awful in his last fight, but he is live in the first round. And you have to recognize that threat in round number 1. So maybe a potential D-Gen prop of the night type bet that I'll put on this week's Best MMA bets will be Burns by first round. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, we got Angel Pacheco versus Colin Loughran. Colin Loughran, a.k.a. the dwarf version of Brock Lesnar, fighting out of Ireland. I think he wins the decision. I'm going to go Loughran by decision. I like Angel Pacheco's hands. He's scrappy as hell. He went to war with Danny Silva on that fight on Dana White's Contender Series, the best Contender Series fight I ever seen. He's all heart for sure, but he's been rocked in a lot of fights. And I think that Loughran, with that high guard, keeps decent pressure on him, times takedown attempts, times controlling the clinch. And I think he can get a decision win. Loughran's a better athlete than Pacheco. I'd say Pacheco's got an absolute insane amount of dog in him. And I'm definitely picking Loughran to win a decision. I think it's going to be hard to stop Pacheco. But nonetheless, I do think Loughran can beat him here. He fought a very tough customer in his debut, too, against Taylor Lapilus. Note for Pacheco, this fight is at 35. His Contender Series fight was at 145. So back down to his natural weight class. I guess that's better for him here. 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach. I think Colin Loughran gets a decision over him. I see him backing him up. I see him tying up with him, pressuring him for takedowns. I think Loughran... decision win makes a lot of sense. That's what I'm calling here. I like Pacheco a lot. It would be fun to see him get the win, but I think Loughran can beat him. Minus 325 for Loughran? What the fuck are these odds? Plus 275 for Pacheco? I don't understand why these odds are this wide. Over 2.5 plus 110. I think it's going over. Why is Pacheco this big of an underdog against Loughran? Loughran's not really that good. He's okay. He's okay. He's got decent high guard and pressure. He backs opponents up well, and he's pretty jacked, so he's got some good physical strength. But to see Pacheco as this big of an underdog is insane to me. I would not throw down Loughran as you're locking the parlays of the week at minus 325, really. Like, I'm not feeling that, at least not right now. Maybe delusion takes over, and I end up feeling it by Wednesday. But my head on Sunday right now is Loughran wins, but it's not an easy fight against Angel Pacheco by any means. Minus 325 is an abysmal line. I got to see, what did it open up at? If I can find it. Minus 300. That's crazy. I thought the line would be 2-1. 2-1 would have been fair. Shout out to the Zin pouches. Let's keep running up the card. Loughran's the pick here. Next fight on the card, we got Connor Matthews versus Denis Buzukja. I'm going to pick Denis Buzukja to win. And he's an underdog, too. I don't know why Connor Matthews is the favorite, though. I think Buzukja is going to be tricky because of his pressure attack. He does throw decent power punches, and I would say he's a little bit reckless, but in this matchup here, I think that can work because Connor Matthews gets a little stiff in the pocket. His head's on that center line a lot, which I don't love. Does have decently timed takedowns, but Buzukja's at the Longo Weidman team. I'm not too worried about issues with the ground skills. Matthews is also a southpaw, something to note, but watch out. Buzukja might be landing some rights down the center. Buzukja's got a weird striking style because he likes those hooks, dipping uppercuts, jump knees. He does rip nice low kicks, but here, that calf kick's not really effective, right? Because Connor Matthews in that opposite stance, fighting from southpaw. Matthews is okay. I'm not overly impressed. The loss to Francis Marshall stands out to me. I went back and rewatched that fight. He looked all right, but he was getting busted open there. Like, I'm looking on the other side. Denis Buzukja, I know he hasn't gotten a UFC win, but he fought Sean Woodson. He fought Jamall. Emmers, quickly knocked out against Emmers. That was a bad look. But you dig even, the Melsik-Beg-Dazarian fight some time ago on Contender Series. Connor Matthews won on Contender Series against Jair Farias. And I know he was a dog in that fight, but Farias, I think, is just overrated as fuck. I think he came into that fight with way too much hype. He was a tall guy, but he didn't have the skill. He didn't have the dog of Buzukja. I see a competitive match between these two, but I think Buzukja can land some clean shots. Matthews gets touched on the inside. I think he gets hit with some overhands. I'm going to pick Buzukja to get it done. Now, he is a dog in this fight. What is the line for the dog? No, he's the favorite. What am I saying? He was the dog, no? Wow, he opened at minus 180? I thought he was a dog. I'm getting the fucking lines mixed up, man. Plus 110 Matthews, Buzukja minus 130. So that makes more sense. Matthews should be a slight underdog here. Over 2.5, minus 155. I think Buzukja makes it a scrap, and he pulls it off. I think he'll win by a decision. Not that it's impossible for him to finish. I could see a rear naked strangle for Buzukja's side. I'm going with him to get it. Buzukja for the win. He should beat Connor Matthews in a hard fight, and he's going to be close to New York, so pretty much fighting at home with a Massachusetts versus New York type fight. I'm going to go with Mr. New York. I'm going with Denis Buzukja to get it done. And I think he gets a UFC win, man. It's been a long time coming. He beats the debuting Matthews. Next fight on the card. We got Andre Petroski versus Jacob Malkoun. I know what my pick is already. I'm just sitting here stalling for a second to just take it in. I'm going with Jacob Malkoun to win. Let me tell you why. Because if this fight turns into a striking match, Jacob Malkoun has better boxing than Andre Petroski. Both guys can grapple. Both guys can wrestle. Petroski has kind of wild striking, and he throws a lot of power, but not a lot of technique behind his shots. Whereas Malkoun has a solid boxing background, a decent boxing game. I wouldn't say he's a fucking, high-tiered boxer, but he knows how to throw some hands, especially better than Petroski. And, Malkoun has always been kind of impressive, right? Even in loss, DQ to Cody Brundage, he was destroying Brundage. That's the only reason Brundage is fighting still, and now Brundage is on 300 because somehow, some way, he got a damn DQW there. It's insane. Nick Maximov win, out-grappled him, and then a Brendan Allen loss, but he was successful landing takedowns of Brendan Allen. He got on top of him a bit. I don't think that Brendan Allen loss aged badly at all, as good as Allen has looked. And then you look, and AJ Dobson win and Abdul Razak Al Hassan win. Last time out, Michel Pereira destroyed Petroski. Totally different style matchup. I'd be shocked if Malkoun destroys him like that. Fight before that, split decision with Mearshart, real competitive. Mearshart's got good jiu-jitsu, but doesn't have great wrestling. Saw a lot of striking. Jacob Malkoun's a better striker. And then when Wellington Turman win, Nick Maximov, quick sub of Maximov, and the Yazang Hu, who turned out to be a complete bust, one of the worst fucking busts ever. Holy shit. I think Jacob Malkoun gets a decision. He could knock Petroski out striking. We could see some handiwork from Malkoun. I'm looking forward to a fight where he's dealing with a guy who's tricky on the ground to see if the striking plays out. But don't be shocked if Jacob Malkoun actually out-wrestles Andre Petroski. I know Petroski's intimidating and jacked, but I think Malkoun's pretty solid. And if you're talking about the hands, though, I give the edge to Malkoun. I'm going Jacob Malkoun for the win in this fight. The lines for it, Jacob is minus 200, Petroski is plus 170. Interesting lines. And over is minus 160. I'm going with Jacob Malkoun. Malkoun. I think I say it wrong all the time. I think it's Malkoun, but I always say Malkoun. I always have since he came to the UFC. I don't know. It's a speech impediment or something. I'm going with Jacob Malkoun to get a decision over Petroski. I think if they're striking, he's winning. I think if they're grappling, he's outpositioning Petroski. Not an easy fight, but I'm going to go with the younger guy. I'm going to go with the prospect. I'm going to go Malkoun to beat Andre Petroski here. Next fight on the card brings us to our featured prelim. The ladies going after it. Verna Jandiroba versus Lupita Godinez. I am picking Lupita Godinez to win. I'm going with Lupi. She's just a more well-rounded fighter than Verna. Verna's best game is grappling, using her jiu-jitsu, getting on top, securing position. She does excellent work against pure strikers. Thing is, Lupita Godinez is an excellent wrestler, and she has very evolved stand-up to go alongside of her wrestling skills that were there coming into the UFC. But now the striking's gotten better. Lupi's faster. She's more athletic. She's more precise. She fights at a higher pace. I think Lupi Godinez is going to do well in this fight here. I think Verna's tough, though, and she'll take some solid shots. She'll be shooting for takedowns, and even if she ends up on bottom, there'll still be moments of attack from Verna. But I think Lupi Godinez pulls it off here. I'm going to say she gets it on the cards. Looking at Lupi, she's on a 4-fight win streak. Cynthia Calvillo split decision. Emily Ducote win. Elise Reed win. And then Tabitha Ricci split, which honestly I was pretty impressive. I didn't think that was a split either. I thought she deserved the W for sure. Verna, win over Marina Rodriguez, who's an excellent striker, but purist striking. Win over Angela Hill, purist striking, not known for the ground. Granted, see a loss there for Lupi. That's how the game goes. Those styles make the fights. Lost to Hibas, who's got solid jiu-jitsu. Beat Kanako Murata, who's Lost to Mackenzie Dern, very solid jiu-jitsu. I think Godinez's wrestling and grappling skills turn this into more of a striking fight, and I think she'll out-kickbox Verna. And if they do tie up, I think Lupi would more likely be the one to land the key takedowns. So we're going with Lupi Godinez to beat Verna. I'm going to say she gets it done on the judges' scorecards. Verna's a plus 155 underdog. Lupi's a minus 190 favorite now. We saw a line jump a little bit. Over 2.5 makes a lot of sense. That's minus 270. I think we're going long here. I'm going with Lupi Godinez to beat Verna Jandiroba. I think she's going to get a decision. I still believe in her as a prospect. She's got some hype coming up for her, and I'm looking forward to seeing more out of Lupi. And I think she'll be fighting at the Sphere for that Mexican Independence Day card, the Mexico Independence. You know what I'm saying? I think Lupi will be fighting on it. I'm going with Lupi Godinez to win. I think she takes out Verna. Excited for this feature prelim. Next fight on the card, it brings us to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. I'm going with Kyle Nelson over Bill Algeo to start this main card. I'm picking the underdog here. Kyle Nelson is a guy that I consistently underrate and underestimate. And the reason I'm picking him over Bill Algeo is because he's much more defensively sound than Algeo. Nelson minds his P's and Q's very well with his guard, blocks shots nicely, moves out of the way of shots nicely, whereas Algeo's a guy that uses range in fights normally and fights with the hands low. Thing is, Kyle Nelson is not significantly shorter. He's 5'11" to Algeo at 6 feet. There's a 2-inch reach advantage for Kyle Nelson. I see Algeo landing some strikes on the outside. I think Nelson pushes a pace to close the gap and get in close. I see it being very competitive. I see a close decision at the end of it. Fernando Padilla, a recent win for Kyle Nelson, has a similar frame to Bill Algeo, actually with a 3-inch reach edge over Bill Algeo. And we saw Nelson have success in that fight. Fight before that, he beat Blake Builder. Fight before that, drawed with Doo Ho Choi. Kyle Nelson has got some things rolling now in his UFC career. He's definitely turned up since the earlier fights. And then Bill Algeo on the other side, I mean, he's still very solid. He won against Alexander Hernandez last time, but he did absorb some shots over the top. And I think Kyle Nelson can land those shots over the top too. And then TJ Brown submission win, but Brown's mostly a grappler, different type of fight. Algeo's got a wrestling base. Something to note. It will be interesting if he goes to that here with Kyle Nelson. Philly split decision, beat Herbert Burns by exhaustion. That Joe Anderson Brito win has aged like fine wine because Brito looks like an absolute killer. For some reason, I'm going with the Canadian. I'll be damned if I don't. I said to myself, fuck it. I got to go with Kyle Nelson. I have a weird feeling that he gets this done. I'm going to pick him on the scorecards. I think he beats Bill Algeo in a close fight. As far as the odds here, Kyle Nelson currently sitting at, if I can find the lines, plus 180, Algeo minus 210. Over makes a lot of sense, minus 223. When I was taking notes for this one, I wrote down first thing before the pick, over 2.5 rounds. Because I think this fight's going the distance here. I think we can see Kyle Nelson win it, man. I don't think he's getting dropped by a big punch. I think his takedown defense will be pretty on point. And I think Kyle Nelson and him, hard 3 rounds, close decision for Kyle Nelson. I'm going with the dog to open the main card. I got a weird feeling about it. I'm going to go Nelson for the win over Bill Algeo. Next fight on the card, we have Nursultan Ruziboev versus Sadriquis Dumas. I'm picking Nursultan Ruziboev. I'm a Ruziboev fan, and he also falls into my rule, pick the OVs and the EVs for the majority of the time over the rest. Sadriquis Dumas has a long frame, 6'2", 79-inch reach. Yeah, well, he's fighting Nursultan Ruziboev, who's the one guy that has more height over him. Isn't that kind of crazy? Nursultan Ruziboev has a height edge over one of the tallest guys at middleweight. Ruziboev's good from distance too, and for some reason we don't have his reach available. I'm 95% sure that I know his reach off the top of my head, and it's 79 inches. If that's off by any means, I'll put a comment below and I'll let you guys know, but I think Nursultan Ruziboev is 79 inches too. I think it's about that. I feel like Ruziboev can touch Dumas in the striking, but where he is going to shine the most is when they go to the ground. We saw Josh Fremd submit Sadriquis Dumas in his UFC debut a year ago. Ruziboev's known for the submissions. He's got a shitload of subs. 20 submission wins. Ruziboev by submission is what I see happening here. I think he taps out Sadriquis Dumas, and I also think he could strike with him. Ruziboev's W over Bruno Ferreira aged pretty damn well. I mean, Bruno Ferreira just beat Phil Hawes, and Bruno Ferreira also before that beat Gregory Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is still a high pedigreed guy in the UFC middleweight division. Ruziboev with a destructive type win here against Sadriquis Dumas. He's going to get a big jump up in competition for his next fight, and I honestly think he's got the skills to compete at least at a decent level with like the top 20, top 25 even. Because he's what, over 40 pro fights, only 30 years of age, significantly more experienced, not even 2 years older than Sadriquis Dumas, and known for nasty ground skills and nasty striking. I'm going submission for Ruziboev over Sadriquis Dumas. Minus 265 for Ruziboev, high confidence pick. Dumas plus 225. I'll go under 2.5. I'm not into the under 1.5. I think Ruziboev gets it done via submission, and I think he wins his sophomore UFC appearance. Dumas is not bad. Dumas definitely can strike and grapple. I mean, he beat Cody Brundage. That's a huge win. Beat Abu Azaitar. Nursultan Ruziboev is a different level to those UFC opponents. I mean, he's the best fighter Dumas has fought in his whole UFC run, and I think it's a legit jump up in comp, and I think Ruziboev can win this fight really anywhere, but I think he's going to end up getting it done via submission. So Nursultan Ruziboev is my pick in this fight. Next fight on the card, we got Chidi Njokuani versus Rhys McKee. I'm going with Chidi Njokuani. You guys know I've been a Chidi Njokuani fan for a long time, but I hate the fact that he's dropping to 170. I initially was thinking, oh, damn, Rhys McKee's filling up and he's going to 185. No, we're doing this at 170. Chidi Njokuani at 35 is going to cut down to 170 pounds, something he hasn't done since 2016. Little bit of a worry on my front. That weight cut doesn't get any easier, and it's not like Chidi Njokuani has body fat. The dude is shredded to the gills. So I have a little concern about Chidi Njokuani dropping down in weight. The thing is, Rhys McKee is not all that top tier with his stand-up. He's not all that great. He's got good striking. He's not bad. Like, good on a means of the national level, not as the highest level goes, the UFC level. Njokuani's got way nastier Muay Thai. I also think he's way better on the ground. I think he can dominate Rhys McKee in close. I think he can outmuscle him. McKee last time lost to Angelou. So he had a couple moments in the fight, but he got busted up for the most part. And I think Chidi Njokuani can bust up Rhys McKee if the weight cut goes smoothly. So please pay attention to the scales in this fight because we want to see Chidi and Njokuani make weight, and we want to see him look healthy making the weight. And hopefully he has a good rehydration. If we have the Chidi and Njokuani who we've seen recently versus the McKee who we've seen recently, it's Chidi and Njokuani by knockout. That's going to be my official prediction in this fight. And Njokuani by KO. But there are some stipulations and concerns, some worries moving forward. So make sure you check out the weigh-ins. Make sure you check out the weigh-in recap show. We'll look at it after we see the fighters on the scales, and we'll get another glance. But right now, I do think Chidi and Njokuani can finish. Njokuani is -190. He's not a huge favorite. He's decent sized. McKee +165. Under 1.5 again. Under is +105. Could be under 1.5, but I wouldn't be shocked if it went longer than that. McKee's not chinny. I think it could go into the later stages of the second and third, even though I'm picking Njokuani to get a finish. And you look at Njokuani's recent wins. I mean, he was doing damage to Gregory Rodriguez. Look at the cut. Albert Duraev, that fucking split decision pissed me off, that fight. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, he was rocking him early, and then he ends up getting stopped. I think Njokuani can knock McKee out. So I'm going to pick Njokuani KO. I actually do think it's probably the first round, but I'm not shocked if it goes longer than that. Njokuani, KO win over McKee. Chidi bang bang for the W. I think he's going to be successful at 170, but I'm a little nervous about the cut. We'll see how he looks. Next fight is our featured bout of the night. We got Bruno Silva versus Chris Weidman. This is the send-off fight for Chris Weidman, and I'm sorry, but he's getting sent off out cold on his back staring at the lights, bro. I'm going Bruno Silva by KO. How am I to pick Chris Weidman, who at this point has knock knees because he broke his leg against Uriah Hall and does not look the same at all? He fought Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares last time beat him, and Brad Tavares is not a powerful puncher. Brad Tavares is not known for flash KOing pretty much anybody. Brad Tavares is a volume guy, a decision winner, and he beat Chris Weidman by a decision. On the opposite side, I got Bruno Silva, who has the death punch option. Recently knocked out Brad Tavares, recent common opponent. Chris Weidman's not the same, man. 2 wins and 7 losses since losing his UFC belt, or since his last title defense, rather. Loses the belt 2-7 since then. So he had the belt to now 2-7 since then. At one point, Chris Weidman was 13-0. He's now 15-7 as a pro. He's declined with age, but he's also declined due to a terrifying injury to his leg. And now you're fighting a tricky striker who also doesn't have awful grappling. I know people say, oh, Mearshart dropped him and subbed him. Okay. Shit happens in the game. He also went distance with Alex Pereira and landed good shots against him. I think Bruno Silva can chin Chris Weidman. And it's not like Bruno Silva's a dead fish in the grappling. I think he can fight off takedown attempts, especially the takedown attempts that Weidman is going to be shooting that are a lot slower than prime Weidman. He's 39. This is not the Weidman of the past. This is a Chris Weidman who's had his run, and now he's taking on Bruno Silva, who's a fucking heavy-handed Brazilian, and I'm going with the heavy hands of Brazil. I'm going Bruno Silva by knockout. I think he's chinning Chris Weidman, unfortunately. Odds for this fight, Bruno Silva is -300. Huge favorite. Chris Weidman, a +250 dog. It just makes sense, though. I mean, common opponent was Brad Tavares, and Silva dusted him. Over is -170, but I think we might be going under, +140. I think Silva might knock Weidman out early because Weidman's going to be so clunky on the feet. When you give him a power puncher on the other side, Weidman is going to be panic shooting takedowns. We also got the big cage. We're in Atlantic City. We're not at the Apex. I think that gives Silva a lot of room to work to land more devastating strikes. I'm going Bruno Silva. I'm going knockout win. I think he's taking Chris Weidman's head off, unfortunately. Unfortunately for Weidman, fortunately for Bruno. Next fight is our co-main event of the evening. It's Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm picking Joaquin Buckley. The reason I'm going with Buckley, a big reason, is he's a southpaw. And you look, Jeff Neal was finding a lot of shots on Vicente Luque from that southpaw stance. Not saying that Buckley and Neal are identical, but there are similarities to their striking. They're both athletic. They both have power. They both have good bounce and movement, and they both are southpaws. I think Buckley's going to touch up Luque with some hard ones. Luque is very set in his Muay Thai stance. Big shots are going to hit him in the face. He uses blocking a lot rather than head movement, but when you're blocking these shots with the small gloves, there's a lot of absorption that's still going to be going through, and you're still going to be taking damage even with your guard up. On the other side, Buckley's got a speed advantage too, athleticism advantage too, youth advantage in the fight. But look at the miles on the car. Vicente Luque, he was in a war with Mike Perry how many damn years ago now? Luque last time out beat RDA. And it's a great win to beat a legend like RDA, but it's a lightweight RDA that's moved up to welter, but never was a full-size welterweight. And it's a 39, 38-year-old RDA. Jeff Neal knocked him out before that, and he did lose to Bilal Muhammad in the fight before that. I think Buckley's going to be hard to deal with. It's just career timing at this point. I feel like Buckley lands some big punches. I don't know if he's going to knock Luque out. I'm kind of thinking Buckley might take it on the cards in competitive fashion, but landing the bigger shots. I just think Luque may be a tad slower than he once was. His stand-up is good, but I don't think he has an easy time finding takedowns here either. His stand-up is good, but he's hittable. That's where I was going with it. I got jumped to the next point. I just think that Luque is also going to have a hard time getting Buckley down, and he might need key takedowns to win this fight. Luque's best chance to win may actually be a submission here against Buckley. Getting it to the floor, avoiding the big strikes. But he's not a top-tier wrestler. Now, he's got nasty Darce chokes. And if Buckley fucks around in the grappling with him, Luque's live by sub. So if you're on Buckley and, you want to sprinkle the other side with a hedge, maybe Luque by submission is something to consider. But I think Buckley can beat him. I'm going to pick Buckley. Right now, I'm picking him. That's how I feel Sunday. That's how I feel right this moment. I feel Buckley getting it done. Odds for the fight, Buckley's a slight dog at plus 115. Luque minus 135. Luque's the better kicker, which is weird to say because Buckley's got one of the knockouts of the year. But I will tell you, the hands favor Buckley by a good amount at this point, especially the southpaw stance. Luque's not going to have those kick options the same as you would against an orthodox fighter. We're going with Buckley, plus 115. I don't really like the over-under. I do think Buckley's live for a knockout. Could go all three, though. It's like, just because Jeff Neal chinned him, now we're going to pick Buckley by knockout for sure? No, I think decision is live too. Like, I respect Luque's chin. He's only been knocked out once as a pro. Granted, it was just 2 fights ago, and it was against a guy with a similar style to Buckley, so we might be looking at another KO. We shall find out when the cage door closes. Nonetheless, I think Buckley wins the fight, landing the more significant shots, and let's find out if he can get the kill shot too. Buckley for the W over Vicente Luque in the co-main event. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Erin Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot. I love it. Erin Blanchfield, all day is the pick for me. I'm a fan of Blanchfield's style, the pressure wrestling attack, and the girl does not break. She's ready for 5 rounds, I promise you. She's got the gas tank. She's got the wrestling pace. Manon Fiorot in the first round is going to touch her from distance, and she's going to be hard to close the gap on. But Blanchfield is going to continue to make her reads after those 5 minutes, probably 5 minutes that she loses, and then she's going to close that gap and tie up with Fiorot. And then the takedowns are going to start coming into effect. Blanchfield is too on point with her takedowns, and Manon Fiorot, though she has great kickboxing, does not have the most devastating hands, right? Doesn't have crazy thud power, which is rare at women's flyweight anyways. Blanchfield's going to be able to come forward through big shots. And I think Blanchfield is going to eventually tie up with Fiorot, get her to the ground, and start to dominate from there. The question becomes, how will Manon Fiorot deal with the submission threat on the ground with Erin Blanchfield? Honestly, we're yet to really find out because Fiorot has never fought somebody with the wrestling and top control like Blanchfield. I think Blanchfield is live to win this fight by submission or decision. I wouldn't be any bit surprised if Blanchfield takes 4 out of the 5 rounds, but it could be Blanchfield losing the first, winning the second and third, and then Fiorot just completely gassed, and then Blanchfield looks for a finish on the ground and ends up getting it. I think submission is a live method of victory. I'm thinking Blanchfield submission or decision. If you have that prop available to play both, maybe if you're on the betting side of it, that would be something to look at. I like Erin Blanchfield to win a lot, just money line though. Blanchfield is my pick. I'm confident that she wins it. I believe in Erin Blanchfield. For me, if there's one fighter without the OV naturally to their name, I throw the OV on it. Erin Blanchfield. She's got that Dagestan-style strength. The only other place in the world you got strength like Dagestan is New Jersey, of course. Erin Blanchfield for the win. Now, as far as the odds, minus 160 for Blanchfield. Fiorot is plus 140. And looking at it, and over is minus 115. Interesting. That's over 4.5 rounds, too. It could go over 4.5. Initially, I was thinking Blanchfield decision, but I'm hearing a slight whisper. Yo, sub is live, too. So sub or decision kind of makes a lot of sense here. But I do think Blanchfield is going to garner a lot of control time. It's just how good is the submission defense from Fiorot? Ultimately, we don't know yet because she hasn't fought somebody like Blanchfield. What I do know is Blanchfield can take big shots and weather a striking storm. And with 5 rounds, too, you got to favor the pressure wrestling. She's going to get a hold of Fiorot at some point. Fiorot's not going to be able to dance on her for 5 rounds. I don't see it. It's not possible, and she's not knocking Blanchfield out. It's Erin Blanchfield for the win in the main event. The biggest win of her career, her young career, her undefeated UFC career. You can see Miranda Maverick win, and Maverick solid. JJ Aldrich win. Molly McCann domination. Jessica Andrade win, which is huge. Talia Santos win. Granted, Andrade jumped in on short notice. She still destroyed her. Beat Talia Santos in a tough fight, and Santos is dangerous. Last time it was a Rose Namajunas win for Fiorot. Caitlin Sermonara, Jennifer Maya, Bueno Silva, and Tabitha Ricci. It's interesting she fought and beat the former bantamweight #1 contender. There's a grappler that she beat in Tabitha Ricci, but Ricci doesn't have the wrestling game of Blanchfield, and currently Ricci is down at women's 115. She doesn't have the size of Blanchfield either. Fiorot's never fought somebody like Blanchfield. You can say the same. Blanchfield's never fought anybody like Fiorot, but closer comparison, right? Talia Santos has good kickboxing. And Blanchfield was able to close the gap eventually, even eating some shots, but close that gap and garner control. Now imagine 5 rounds. I'm going Blanchfield for the win. I'm feeling decision right now as we speak, but sub is live too. Erin Blanchfield to get it done in the main event, at home in New Jersey, repping it. I'm hype as hell to see. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn on those post notifications too so you don't miss a video. And daily live streams as well are back, so make sure you tune into those. Thank you guys all for watching. I got mad love and appreciation for each and every one of you. Closing in on 30,000 subscribers. Let's go. Let me know in the comments, what are your favorite picks? And drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy if you got nothing to say. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys throughout the week. Much love. Peace.